Hello and welcome to Whispers Reddit. We're thrilled to have you join our cozy corner where we dive into the most intriguing, heartwarming, and sometimes mysterious stories from Reddit. Whether you're here to unwind, get inspired, or simply enjoy a good story, you've come to the right place. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a whisper. Grab a comfortable seat, relax, and let's embark on this storytelling journey together. Thank you for being part of our community. Let's get started. Tom and I have been married for 5 years. He was an undergraduate and I was completing my master's degree when we first met in graduate school. I quit my job after getting married, but I had to return when our baby was 6 months old because Tom's salary wasn't enough to support the three of us. I'm divorcing my husband because he invited his ex for dinner and humiliated me. Now, everyone is saying that I'm wrong for wanting to leave. We have a 4-year-old boy together. Tom claims that his job is more physically demanding than mine because he works as a personal trainer at a nearby gym. I tried to convince him for weeks that this was unrelated to his abilities and that, in my opinion, 2 salaries would be preferable to 1. After he realized he could take some time off work to spend with our son, he finally warmed up to me after being angry with me for a long time. The disadvantage was that I ended up doing all of the housework in addition to my job. Believes that because I work from a desk, I should handle the majority of the housework even though I put in more hours. He said that because I don't do much physical activity at work, home chores shouldn't be too taxing for me. When I first started working, we had agreed that he would help with at least some tasks, but every time I got home, the job was only partially done, and he would frequently use the excuse that he was too tired. We would argue about it constantly until I gave up on trying to get him to do his share. I started taking care of everything myself to avoid the frequent arguments, and because I was so stressed out, I started smoking. Tom also made fun of me for this, saying that I was just trying to show off how stressed I was. I also had to put up with Tom's constant criticism of my bad cooking, which was mostly his fault because he never helped with meal preparation, and I had to balance work and other obligations. I had been living this way for the past few years, knowing that leaving would have an impact on our relationship. Tom would constantly compare me to his mother, his aunts, and other women he knew who had no trouble juggling work at home. He would simply laugh it off and tell me to calm down because it was only a joke, even though I would counter that these women most likely had supporting husbands. I ended up giving up and hiring a maid last year, paying for her out of pocket. Tom continued to make fun of me because he thought it was a reflection of my poor housekeeping abilities. Would sometimes have fun together, but I remembered the times he would annoy me, and I had been considering a divorce for a while when Tom invited his ex-girlfriend Lucy 28F home for dinner last week. Before they broke up because they were attending different universities, he and Lucy, his high school girlfriend, dated for almost 6 years. He first saw her at the grocery store. She had recently moved to our area, and he had asked her over for dinner without even asking. I knew these two were quite the item in high school, but that didn't prepare me for his overly pleasant and flirtatious behavior during dinner. He was obviously trying to annoy me, and it was working. That was the second strike, and on the third strike, he started making jokes about what a messy housewife I would be and how lucky I was to have my career as a justification, otherwise he wouldn't be able to explain to any of my guests why. Tom's friends would constantly bring her up and make fun of him for it, even after we got married. Because Lucy is a stay-at-home mom of 2 girls, he kept making jokes about how much better she was at everything and that I would never be caught doing anything like that. He also mentioned my smoking, saying that I was just trying to show off how stressed I was, just like Lucy, who was flawless at everything. I was fighting back tears as he said that Lucy was actually at the grocery store buying ingredients for a French dish that she ended up preparing for her husband. I decided to leave after serving them ice cream for dessert because it was an embarrassing experience. I waited until Tom went to bed that evening, which wasn't strange because I usually clean the dishes at night and don't go to bed until he's sleeping. As soon as he started snoring, I packed some clothes and other necessities for our son and myself, called a cab, and went to my parents' place. By the time I got there, it was. My mother opened the door at almost midnight, and I started crying as soon as she did. I tried to explain that my child was upset and confused, and that I wasn't sure if Tom could take good care of him while I was away, so I didn't want to leave him and find out I had to bring him along without asking. My parents took us in, and after they put my son to bed, I was finally able to gather myself and tell them everything. Tom called me quickly the next morning to ask where I was, and I could hear the worry in his voice. Vanished, and he started laughing when I told him the truth and said I was going to file for divorce. He told me to just come home and stop the chaos, which infuriated me so much that I started screaming at him, calling him a selfish, misogynistic, and EPT man. He finally seemed to understand that I was serious when I told him that I would rather be single for the rest of my life than go back to him, and he started arguing with me on the phone, accusing me of exaggerating and making a big deal out of nothing instead of providing an. When he realized that this was more than just a joke, he started acting like the victim, saying that I had been planning my departure for some time and that this was the last straw currently affecting all of our relationships. He apologized, saying that there was no need to take things personally and that his jokes were just an attempt to lighten the atmosphere around Lucy. The problem is that his jokes weren't funny, they were nasty and cruel, especially considering that I was already making every effort every day. Despite my efforts to explain that there are many things they don't know, some people seem to feel more at ease when I post an explanation of everything I've previously discussed. Tom also noticed and commented that I should have told him if these were my issues and he would have taken care of it. I've been telling him these things. Friends are texting me to tell me that I should put our family before myself and not let a few stupid jokes destroy our marriage. For years, but it hasn't changed, so it's ridiculous. I just finished, and it felt like I was talking to a wall, but after that post, he started to insist that he only needed one last chance to make it work, that he would change and get better, and that he would persuade some of our acquaintances to try to persuade me to stay by telling me that he would definitely improve and make a great husband. However, it annoys me that he keeps bringing up our friends, as he appears to be using a dishonest and immature tactic, peer pressure to try to. I've given him multiple chances to change over the past few years, but he's never done so I don't think he's capable of changing anymore. Even if I stayed right now, I'm sure he would try to make a sincere effort for a few months before reverting to his previous behavior. I'm tired of being a single mother, even though I have a spouse and I'm not getting any younger. He's hardly the best role model for our son, and aside from that, I most definitely do not want my son to grow up. Tom is upset mainly because he never wanted a divorce in the first place and because I have asked to keep the house where we lived and filed for full custody of our son or sell it and divide the proceeds 60/40, with me receiving the larger portion since both of our parents gave us the house as a gift. I've been living with him for a long time in a home where his kind of behavior is accepted for the sake of my son and I, and now I'm leaving him for the same reason. Given all the work and effort I've put in over the past few years working full-time, raising my son, and taking care of all household chores without his help, I feel that I should be given the majority of the money from the sale of the wedding present. I think the petition is reasonable because I'm not even asking for alimony, even though I want a divorce. Tom says I'm being unfair and that I shouldn't have asked for full custody because our son is equally his and mine. Which makes sense, but I don't think he's capable of being a father. He can still visit and see his son whenever he wants to. I haven't tried to take away his visiting privileges, he just doesn't have him full-time. After I was served, he called and said I was being crazy and that this was a terrible overreaction. He said that since I was asking for full custody of the house, he already didn't agree with the divorce and had good reason to believe I was being irrational. It was very embarrassing when he started crying. However, when I mentioned that I had given it a lot of thought and that it hadn't been easy for me either, it's evident from everything I've written that Tom isn't an emotional person, so his breakdown is a major problem. He was crying and telling me in a dramatic manner that he had taken everything for granted because he never imagined he could bear to lose me one day. He begged me to give him one last chance to show that he could be a great husband and father, and I had to inform him that my choice was certain and that he had realized a little too late, even though it was really hard for me to do so. I couldn't just go back to the life. It was odd and awkward for me to have to stay on the phone and try to console him for the next few minutes as he started crying even more. He finally stopped crying and said that if our son suffered as a result, he would never be able to forgive himself or me. We might renegotiate the terms of his custody in a few years when he's a little older. He abruptly ended the call, and for the next few hours, I didn't hear from anyone. However, our friends have been contacting me again, telling me that what I'm doing is fundamentally wrong and that I should think twice before acting. They're arguing that instead of being so callous and self-centered, I should try to be strong for our son's sake and make the most of our circumstances. I reassured him that this was only a temporary arrangement. After a very busy week, I'm back with an update. My lawyer and I have been preparing for the negotiations for the divorce settlement and custody dispute. Tom is pleading for another chance, and it was only a few at first, but now it's almost everyone we know. I'm starting to seriously consider changing my mind because I might be the bad guy here. I don't know anymore because my husband doesn't help me. Am I the jerk for asking for a divorce and full custody of our son? Meet with the court-appointed mediator. I'm not too concerned about the divorce process itself, but I am worried about the custody dispute. Everyone keeps saying that my request for full custody is ridiculous, but they don't see the big picture. Our son spends more time with me and always has, so I know he favors me. We all know that's not how kids work, but Tom has always tried to establish a relationship with our son on his own terms, and I've noticed that Tom has suddenly become a worried father. The most annoying thing about the past week is that he has been making false claims on social media about how much he misses his son and how unfair it is that he can't see him. He hasn't tried, but he is welcome to visit at any time. Several of our mutual acquaintances have reposted these posts, adding their own comments about what a loving parent he is, but the reality is completely different. For example, Tom doesn't know our son's daily schedule, preferred meals or allergies, and he only recently called us to ask if our child. Since I have been actively involved in our son's life while Tom has only occasionally done so, my lawyer believes we have a strong case. Everything from the doctor's visits I've taken our son to the parent-teacher conferences Tom has missed to the daily routine I've maintained while working a full-time job is documented. He still enjoys dinosaur-shaped nuggets because of his current space-themed food obsession, which our son hasn't had in over a year. The financial situation is a complete mess. Tom's lawyer, who is contesting my request for the house, sent over some preliminary documents. They argue that it should be divided equally because it was a wedding present from both families, conveniently omitting the fact that I have been in charge of all the repairs and upgrades over the years. What's really getting to me is the constant stream of messages from people who barely comprehend our situation. Some of Tom's gym patrons have. The most unexpected development was my mother-in-law's response. She called me to sincerely let me know that she understood my decision and that, in contrast to most of our friends who have sided with Tom, she had a charming personality at work, which inevitably translates into being a good husband and father. They called me to express their sadness and to tell me what a wonderful man he has always been to them. All of this has been made possible by the amazing support of my own parents. My mom has been watching our son, while my dad helps me manage my financial documents. I've come to appreciate how alone and unsupported I felt in my marriage thanks to their assistance, to be honest there. Tom's father also faced similar issues, but she chose to stay and try to resolve them. I could tell how that worked out for her just by the resignation in her voice as she said those words. For the first time since I moved out, there have been times when the stress has been too much to bear. Last night, I reached for a cigarette, but I stopped myself because I realized that my smoking was not necessary, but rather the result of my marital discontent. Oddly, Tom has started sending me long texts late at night that range from tearful pleas to irate accusations. He also mentioned in his most recent message that he has been learning how to properly do washing and, in the comment section, people accuse me of being cold-hearted and speculate that I might be going through a midlife crisis. Screenshots of Tom's private social media posts in which he offers his perspective have been sent by several mutual acquaintances. He presents himself as a loving spouse who was taken aback by a wife who had never expressed her displeasure. Cooking by watching tutorials would almost be humorous if it weren't so depressing at the age of 28. That one made me laugh because it seems like I'm already going through a midlife crisis at the age of 35. My lawyer advised me to document everything instead of responding to any of these provocations, saying that when he engages in this kind of dishonest behavior in public, it actually benefits our cause. It's hard to avoid feeling attacked from all sides, but the one thing that keeps me grounded is seeing how much more at ease our son has been since we moved to my parents' house. He seems to be happier overall and is eating my first mediation session is next week, and even though my lawyer has prepared for it, I'm still nervous because I know it will be a difficult process because Tom's attorney has already stated that they intend to vigorously oppose the full custody request. Every day that passes makes me feel more certain about my choice despite all the pressure and second thoughts. Sleeping better naturally, he still asks about his father, but he isn't as worried about it as he was when we all shared a home and things were tense. Living with my parents for the first time in years has, I suppose, reminded me of what a supportive home is like. I'm getting enough sleep and I'm starting to remember who I was before I became so consumed with trying to make an impossible situation work as we start the legal proceedings. The next few weeks will be crucial after the mediation session. I'll give you another update, but for now I just wanted to thank everyone who helped me with my first post when I was most doubting myself. Your comments kept. Tom paid us a visit at my parents' house today. Since my last update was a week and a half ago, I must admit that I was afraid of this encounter. Given all of his recent passionate text messages, I expected this visit to be contentious, but today's events fundamentally changed my viewpoint on a number of issues. This was probably our last informal meeting before the actual legal process begins, as we have our mediation session in a few days. Door looking more put together than I had seen him in a long time. He was also carrying a small gift bag for our son, and he was dressed appropriately in a button-down shirt instead of his usual gym attire. His demeanor really caught my attention. Even when we were married, he rarely engaged in small talk with my parents. He asked my dad about my mom's garden and talked to him about some local sports. Yes, it was awkward, but strangely courteous. When we entered the living room, our son was playing and his entire face brightened when he spotted Tom Daddy. He yelled, dropped his toys, and ran straight into Tom's embrace. I saw their contact from the doorway when I brought up our son's new space passion in the custody documents. The unexpectedly normal conversation lasted for about 15 minutes before he asked to see our son. It took me a little while to respond because his manner of asking, not demanding, was already very different from how he usually acts. He tried to control the activities and got upset when our son did not follow his instructions exactly. Hearing Tom ask about our son's day, his daycare pals, and his favorite parts of living at Grandma and Grandpa's place really got to me. He genuinely listened to our son's meandering responses about the treehouse in the backyard and the spaceships, proving that he had listened to Tom led our kid to take the lead in assembling it, something he had never done before. They sat on the floor together. At one point, our son started telling Tom about how I make rocket-shaped sandwiches for him. Previously, Tom would have made a sarcastic comment about my culinary skills, but now he wanted our kid to show him how our son took his father's instructions on how to properly assemble a rocket sandwich extremely seriously. They spent the next 20 minutes in the kitchen, and our son's question about when he may see his father again was the first time I had ever seen our neighbor cat interact with our son in this manner in the years we had been married. When it was time for Tom to leave, after they had finished playing, our son gave him a big embrace and invited him to come back the following day. Tom gave me a curious look, and before I had a chance to think about it, I found myself nodding. This was a true turning point because I was struck by the hopeful expression on both of their cheeks. Tom didn't try to control the situation or make demands right away. Instead, he just stared at me while he waited for my response. Even though he couldn't be a better husband, he assured me he was willing to learn everything he could to become a better father. He said he had been attending parenting classes 3 times a week and had hired a nanny to teach him how to properly care for children. He acknowledged this without displaying his usual defensiveness, acknowledging that he realized how much he had missed by not being more involved after witnessing our son's growth and transformation in just these few weeks. He didn't say this to boast, but to show me that he was serious about it. I called my lawyer after he left, and the following paragraph is logically separated and punctuated. I told her that I would be willing to discuss a joint custody agreement and that he didn't make any grandiose claims about changing or trying to get me to return. Instead, he asked me to re-evaluate the entire custody agreement and suggested that we set up a schedule that would allow him to show that he could be a responsible parent without interfering with our son's daily routine. She mentioned all of the documents we had gathered showing Tom's previous lack of involvement and said I no longer wanted to pursue full custody. I told her that even though he hadn't been a good husband, I needed to give him a chance to become a better father. Our son's expression of pure happiness today made me realize that, even though it's the right thing to end my marriage, I don't have the power to cut off my son's relationship with his father, especially now that Tom is finally demonstrating. Tom and his lawyer have been very helpful, which I believe is his way of expressing regret for his previous actions. Our son's custody arrangements are still being worked out verbally and informally, but we're thinking that he should spend half of the month at his dad's house and the other half at mine. Update 3. Tom wants to be the father our son deserves. Surprisingly, the divorce talks are going much more amicably than I had anticipated. This arrangement initially made me anxious, but to my immense relief, Tom has come through for me. He has pleaded with his mother for help, and even after our marriage ended, she has been more supportive than some of my closest friends. She still calls me daily to check on me and sends me pictures of the bedroom she is helping Tom furnish for our son. In addition, the house matter has been resolved more easily than I had anticipated, which is a testament to the extra work I have put in over the years, Tom. In addition, Tom has taken a co-parenting course that was recommended by the mediator but not required through our new co-parenting app, which enables us to manage appointment calendars and our son's activities without having to speak to each other directly. He has been keeping me updated on his progress, and the way Tom handles our son's space period has been the most amicable. They agreed to sell it and split the profits 55 to 45 in my favor. Unexpectedly, his apartment's spare room has been transformed into a miniature planetarium with glow-in-the-dark stars mounted on the ceiling. To keep the houses consistent, he asked me to share our son's nightly routine, which he has been doing with his mother because neither of us thinks it's healthy for our son to spend 2 weeks away from either parent. I still see him every few days while Tom is away, and we've scheduled Wednesday dinner with whoever doesn't have him that week. The mediation sessions, which alternate weekends rather than rehashing our marital issues, have been successful because they have targeted practical co-parenting strategies for handling school schedules, healthcare decisions, and holiday plans. Tom has been actively participating, taking notes, and asking relevant questions. There is no longer any conflict on social media or late-night texts. We have established clear contact boundaries. Our lawyers or the co-parenting app handle everything, and as a final update, Tom voluntarily deleted all of his previous posts about our situation and stated that we are settling the issue privately for the benefit of our son. Throughout all of this, Tom's mother has been an unexpected blessing. She has not only taught Tom how to be a parent, but she also serves as a mediator between us when tensions arise. Last week, she arranged a meeting with both sets of grandparents so we could have a rational discussion about our disagreements over preschool alternatives. In the end, we came up with a solution that pleased everyone, and our son seems to be acclimating to the new situation rather nicely, even though we're trying to maintain some consistency by bringing his favorite stuffed animals with him when he moves between homes. He is excited to have 2 rooms and 2 sets of toys without displaying any signs of worry, and he stopped asking when we were going back home and instead talked about mommy's and daddy's houses. Our lawyers are handling the financial matters expertly, providing clear instructions on how much each of us will pay and how the money may be used. We are also forming a joint. Tom suggested this on his own because he wanted to ensure that our financial responsibilities as co-parents were clear. We have a comprehensive parenting plan that covers everything from medical decisions to education, and there are even instructions on how to handle future relationships, like meeting potential new partners before introducing them to our child. I am aware that there are still challenges in our path, but this is just the beginning of our co-parenting journey, and there will undoubtedly be setbacks, but for the first time since it all began, I genuinely hope that we will be able to prioritize our son's needs and work together as parents, even if we can't work together as spouses. What matters most is that my son is happier than I have seen him in months, and both Tom and I now understand that being good co-parents is more important than letting go of the past hurts. I'm glad we were able to reach a consensus that puts our son's welfare first while allowing us to maintain close relationships with him. Since we broke up a little over a year ago, my ex-girlfriend opened 2 credit cards in my name, accrued about $7,500 in debt, and her current boyfriend is now threatening me. I am grateful for all of your support and advice during this trip when I was feeling self-conscious. Your advice kept me going and helped me make decisions that would benefit my son and myself. This community has been an incredible source of insight and strength. Financial information: when we split up, I moved out of the house we were renting, and I thought I had everything. In February, when I was filing my taxes, I discovered that I had lost the folder containing my tax returns from the previous year. I assumed it had been lost in the move, and I didn't think much of it. Last Friday, I received a lawsuit for more than $5,000 for a credit card that had been in default since May. When I went to check my credit, I discovered that the card had been in default since May, and there was another one that had been. I was unaware of this, so I immediately disputed both accounts on the websites of the 3 bureaus. I was able to speak with someone about one of the cards, and they stated that it was opened in January, long after I had moved out of my old house, and the cards were sent there. I received the statements from the one card, and it was likely 80% from Macy's, 2 stores that my ex loved to shop at. I'm pretty sure she opened the accounts, most likely using my social security number. I called my ex about it using the security number from the old tax returns, and she denied everything. Even after I warned her that she would eventually be caught if she shipped anything to the house using a credit card that had been stolen, she flipped out and began yelling at me, telling me that I couldn't really accuse her of anything and to never speak to her again. About 20 minutes later, I received a call from a blocked number, and it was her boyfriend. He threatened to ruin my life unless I stopped harassing her by saying she had stolen my identity. He hung up. I'm kind of stuck here, opening myself up to retaliation if I proceed with anything from someone who has charges of aggravated arson and aggravated discharge of a firearm in addition to a few battery charges. I can't just do nothing though, and any advice would be greatly appreciated. I'm copying this for every identity theft situation I see on here because it seems to happen a lot. But I was shaken up about it. I can see through the county website that he has some serious felonies. They broke the law and now have to deal with the consequences of their actions. 2. Freeze your credit to ensure that it doesn't happen again. 3. Monitor and track your credit. You should be notified if someone tries to open a credit account. This is all information you can find in this sub and others. 1. Call the police. You are the victim of identity theft, plain and simple. It doesn't matter who did it or how you relate to them. You can do it for free by opening a line of credit in your name, which also displays your credit score. Step 4. Alert any other potential victims, such as family members or anyone else whose social security number the thief may have stolen. Step 5. Send the police report to the credit bureaus and provide them with the report number. When you dispute all of the accounts, most of the time that will be sufficient for them to remove the accounts from your credit. The onus is on the creditors to demonstrate that the accounts are actually yours. In this particular case, you need to go to the police because this guy seems like a very violent person. I would get a restraining order as soon as possible. Does he know where you live? I would also not contact your ex at all regarding identity theft. Don't take identity theft lying down, even if it's someone close to you. If you let them get away with it, get ready for 5 to 10 years of bad credit collection agencies coming after you, lawsuits, etc. Anything else, let it all go through the legal system. I'm going to call the police because I was really worried about the whole thing. How can I get the police report to the credit companies? Contact the lenders and give them the police report number in the jurisdiction. Let the police bank handle it. Give the lawyers who filed the suit all of that information. Bring it all to court. Don't miss a court date update. I took the advice in the comments and went to the police quickly and painlessly. I gave the report number to the credit card companies and the credit bureaus, and they told me that I didn't need to do anything else except show up to the court date for the lawsuit. I found out through a mutual friend today that my ex was arrested this morning. Apparently, the county issued a warrant for her last week, and she was pulled over on her way to work. It appears that she was charged and released fairly quickly. I was in and out in about 30 minutes with a report number, and I never heard from my ex or her boyfriend again. I found out that my ex and the boyfriend who threatened me are no longer together, so I don't think I have to worry about him anymore. The lawsuit's court date is later this month, but everything has already disappeared from my report, and my score has increased by about 200 points. I'm still going to the court date to make sure everything is okay, but it looks like everything is going well from here on out. Commenter 1, that's fantastic news. Your story will also inspire others to seek justice when they've been harmed.
Kommentar 2.
If you haven't already, make sure you freeze your SSN with all 3 credit bureaus. Am I the __ for concealing my boyfriend's anime body pillow during my parents' visit? My boyfriend M32 and I, F27, have been dating for a year, and because they live quite far away, he only met my parents once during the holidays last year. They have been visiting this past week, and since we recently moved in together, they were thrilled to see our new home and get to know my BF a little better. We have an extra bedroom. And this has mostly been my boyfriend's gaming room, but we decided that it would double as a second bedroom when guests arrived. He enjoys playing video games and anime in particular, so he has a lot of toys and artwork that he has gathered over the years from various games. For example, he has an anime body pillow with a sexy anime girl on it, as well as a mouse pad for his gaming computer that looks like a busty anime girl. Before my parents arrived, I asked him to remove his toys and other belongings so they could be. When my parents were coming over, I took the cover off the body pillow and put it in the closet, and I put the mouse pad in a drawer in our room. When my parents arrived and we showed them to their room, my boyfriend noticed that the mouse pad and body pillow were missing. I'm not really comfortable with either item, but he's really into anime, so I've always kind of left it alone. I didn't think it was appropriate to leave it there though. He brought it up to me in bed and asked why I had hidden them. I told him that I didn't think my parents would be comfortable with those items in the bedroom and that we could put them back when they left. My boyfriend became very upset and told me that he felt ashamed of his interest in anime, saying that he had spent his entire life thinking that people thought he was strange for being into it and that he didn't expect his own girlfriend to be like everyone else. The following day, I saw him remove some of his manga books from our bookshelf and place them in a box. AIT top comment talking mice. There's a huge difference between anime video game decorations and sexualized anime content. I asked him why, and he said something like, I'm putting them away so you don't have to look at them anymore. I feel terrible, like I hurt him, but I just didn't think my parents would feel comfortable sleeping in a room with those items. Now, he's acting so cold and distant, and he's not really engaging with my parents at all. I understand that it's his space too, but I don't think a little compromise for a short while is a problem at all. He might think you're embarrassed of his interests, but the truth is that most people don't feel comfortable with sexualized decor, and it's not about anime at all. He really needs to show more consideration for other people, which is exactly how I feel. There are other items in the room that are related to anime gaming that were left up. I apologize for the delay in updating. I was waiting for my parents to leave so I could talk to my boyfriend about everything. I read the comments and they kind of confirmed what I already felt, which was sexual. However, the way he acted the following day when he was putting the books away really bothered me. I ended up explaining the situation to my parents, and they weren't exactly comfortable with it. That's why it was voted NTA Update Edit. Thrilled by his response, but I also got the impression that they don't really approve of him, which is neither here nor there. I'm 27 and mature enough to make my own decisions, but above all, my parents are very important to me. I never get to see them, so I wanted my boyfriend to be there and treat them well while they were here. After they left, I drove them to the airport, but he refused to come. When I returned, I discovered a few trash bags outside the door, and it turned out that my boyfriend had begun throwing. I asked him why he had put all of his anime items in these bags, and he replied that it was obvious that his hobbies weren't welcome in my house. He would keep them in his car until he figured out what to do with them. I kind of lost it. I had been keeping my composure for my parents the entire week, but I had had enough. I told him that I hadn't asked him to get rid of his anime items, only that it wasn't suitable for my parents while they were staying with us. I told him that this was an unfair reaction and that he was being manipulative. We went back and forth for a while before I told him we needed space. I wasn't really planning that, but it came out and it felt right for me. This week was supposed to be about him getting to know my parents, but he was too obsessed with this anime issue to even spend any real time with them. He then accused me of being manipulative for making him think that I was cool with his love of anime for the past year, even though I was obviously ashamed of it. He also claimed he didn't want to be a part of a family that doesn't appreciate anime. He then started crying a lot and apologized, but I was already done, so he left eventually. Now that I'm alone in this apartment, he left the mouse pad and body pillow behind, lol. I'm not sure if we're officially broken up or not, but it seems like it's going that way. I'm feeling terrible, and I almost wish this had happened before my parents came to visit because I feel like it ruined the entire trip. Thank you for your responses, guys, and for helping me open my eyes a little. Editor's note: I couldn't decide if this one was concluded or ongoing, so I've marked it as ongoing for the time being, but if people disagree, I can change it. Our young worship leader at my church led worship during youth, but other band members wanted to leave the original post because they condemned Christian nationalism during a service. The church also has the youth group lead worship on Sunday mornings every few weeks to promote the youth band during the week when the regular worship team is off. The band, but I frequently assist with lyric PowerPoints with another girl, but not when the band performs on Sundays. The youth band's lead singer, Emma, is 20 years old, the daughter of a youth assistant, and the daughter is also an assistant. I'm writing because of what happened the last time the youth band led Sunday worship on the 630th, which caused Emma and her family to leave the church in the middle of one of the songs. Emma stated that she felt compelled to say that Christian nationalism wasn't of God because it went against the foundation of Christianity because God created free will, and too many Christians forgot that she also stated that if people were forced to follow it, there wouldn't be a short and narrow path. She went on to say that Project 2025 was marketed as Christian, but it didn't resemble anything of God because God never forced people to believe in Him. It was short, and they played a few more songs in addition to the closing song after the pastor concluded his sermon, but on Friday night, Emma and her mother weren't present, and we were. I'm writing this post because of a conversation I had with the band and another PowerPoint girl the same Friday. The youth pastor told us that Emma and her mother would no longer be helping the youth before a lot of stuff about giving others the chance to be lead singers because Emma had left the church. However, word got out from one of the band's players that Emma told the band that she got banned during the week and that her parents left the church with her, so they already knew before we found out at youth. Announced it, and the rest of the kids had a private conversation. To cut a long story short, the band is upset about Emma's situation and they have been discussing their options. One of them is a walkout. The next time they are scheduled to perform on Sunday, the service will start with an intro song before someone takes the stage to greet everyone. They would then express their support for Emma before leaving together without telling anyone who isn't connected with the band because they don't want anyone to find out. But the main topic we're discussing is whether it's worth the risk. We probably have a few weeks until the band performs on Sunday again, and they haven't chosen a new lead singer yet. I should also mention that the church only uploaded the sermon from that day, not the worship portion of the service with Emma. They always include worship on their YouTube upload of the service, so most of the worries were about tuition punishment because some of them still want to do something even though their parents help pay. Although I'm not officially a member of the band, aside from occasionally organizing the lyrics on PowerPoint, I thought the least I could do was ask other adults for advice anonymously because we don't want to ask our parents for obvious reasons, and perhaps others could see more advantages and disadvantages that we can. I appreciate any advice that anyone gives, and we relay it to the band as well. Thank you to everyone who read this. I forgot to include this information in my post. Since our church's pastor has previously used the pulpit to discuss politics, including the support of a presidential candidate and other political issues like Roe v. Wade and gay rights, I agree that politics shouldn't be discussed in churches. However, some band members claimed that Emma was fed up with the frequent political topics being discussed during sermons, which is why she said what she did. As a first update, I would like to thank everyone who left a comment on my original post because it was really. This is a brief update with some really unexpected events that occurred. First, the band is still going through the walkout and they're keeping it within the band so that no other kids tell their parents who might tell leaders. It would have been great to include others, but the risk of the church learning about it was too great. Second, the youth band will perform worship for the adults again in 8 quarters. Third, the youth pastor is appointing the new singer agreed that the church's treatment of Emma was BS. The fifth and most exciting part is that 2 of the band members told non-religious relatives about the situation out of fear of punishment. They agreed to attend the service and let them go to their cars in the parking lot right from the walkout for safety. They won't leave the lot in case some parents try to claim kidnapping, but we'll be in their place. The singer is from within the group that will take turns singing on Sundays with future participants in the upcoming weeks. If everything goes according to plan, the rest of us will ask our family members as well. Sixth, one of the band members told a teacher they knew in school who was considering coming and leaving as well. Seventh, one of the band members wrote a brief statement that the lead singer will read before leaving the stage. It would be great if someone with editing experience could help clarify it or offer suggestions on what to include. They tried to keep it brief. I will write a post about their write-up soon. Here's how we hope it goes. The lead singer will then give the speech before the band leaves the stage, and I will leave the pews with them, along with family members and friends. One relative mentioned that she might bring some people she knows, which could make it more noticeable for the church to see adults leaving. The band will play the opening song, which officially begins the service and usually lets people know it's starting. Many people move from the foyer during the intro song. The majority of the band, with the exception of 2 seniors, are not old enough to vote this year, but this is an opportunity to stand up for what is right against something that is adamantly infusing itself into Christian nationalism and making Christianity lose all its respect in our opinion. I will also record the entire thing in case any parents don't react well to it, and I will update after it happens. If anyone has any additional advice, it would be appreciated. Result of our walkout, but it's a small thing we can do to say we did our part when faced with it ourselves. Another commenter put it best when she asked if we'd be able to live with ourselves if we did nothing, and the answer has been no for us thus far. I also want to add something I forgot to clarify in my first post. Emma hadn't said what she did out of the blue, according to the band, and I've seen a lot of it too, but many people sent DMs disagreeing with the band's decision. So, before I get started, I want to go over the specifics of what the pastor has done. Over the course of a few years, I received a few DMs in the pulpit, and he has mentioned Trump multiple times, including in the aftermath of the 2020 election to express his dissatisfaction with the results. He has also celebrated Roe v. Wade's overturning from the pulpit during June's Pride Month, and he even compared Trump's legal trial to how Jesus was persecuted before his crucifixion. When I showed the band the advice from my posts, I also told them about the DMS, and they said that Emma had previously spoken to a leader about the pastor's political sermons, but that nothing came of it because he continued to speak politics from the pulpit. Some of the people who claimed to be Christians said that Emma was wrong to use the microphone to hijack the service with her words, calling her actions immature. Still others were encouraging. We disagree for 2 reasons. First, who is supposed to call out the misuse of the pulpit if not those who attend the same church where it's misused? A few DMs said to do nothing and pray for God to change the pastor's heart, but he's been doing this for years. Secondly, some people have said that our walkout wasn't godly because we like Emma would be using the service for a publicity stunt when church was supposed to be about God. Matthew 18 verses 15 to 17 explains how to call out improper behavior in the church. If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault just between the 2 of you. If they listen, you have won them over. If not, bring 1 or 2 more people so that the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses can establish the matter. If they still refuse to listen, tell the church about it. If they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. Emma has already spoken to a leader one-on-one, and the band has expressed their disapproval of Emma's ban to the youth pastor, who disagreed and said that Emma was inappropriate in saying to the church, though the exact meaning may be up for interpretation. Perhaps telling the church means telling a church leader rather than the audience on stage, but Emma and the band have spoken to a number of leaders, including an elder, aside from our youth leader only for years of political tirades from the pulpit too. Furthermore, we think that politics is similar to Jesus' flipping of the tables in Matthew 21 verse 12 because people were using the temple to sell things that had nothing to do with God. Someone left a link in the comments of my first post that I never saw, but I showed the band, and we couldn't agree with it more. I still intend to talk to my parents before the 8 quarters, and I'll share the article the band is working on very soon. Finally, I want to clarify that I truly appreciate everyone who left a comment. I am not a member of the band, I only perform PowerPoint lyrics during youth. I am also not in the band's group chat with Emma. Some of the band members are thinking about getting punishment from their parents, and 2 seniors are worried about their parents taking away their tuition assistance. I will support them in whatever they decide, keeping in mind that they must also consider their future, as many people commented. If they choose to go ahead with the walkout, I will stand by them and leave the pews. The band decided not to go through with the walkout after 8 quarters since my last post, and Emma was a major factor in that decision. The band informed me that Emma spoke to them a few days prior to the 8th quarter after she spoke to another bandit who expressed concern. The girl who spoke to Emma was 15 years old, and she confided in her about fears of physical abuse. However, if they change their minds because the consequences are too great, I will respect that and continue to support them. Emma addressed the band on behalf of those concerns. Emma also mentioned some of the senior bandmates' worries about losing tuition support and advised them that it wasn't worth jeopardizing their futures. Emma, in contrast to the band, had a full-time job to support herself, but some of the band members had been dependent on their parents for years. Emma essentially advised them to trust their instincts if they were worried about their parents' reaction, as the 15-year-old girl was. The senior who was worried about losing tuition said that I wasn't there when the band spoke to Emma because I'm not a member of the band, I just write PowerPoint lyrics. They told me what songs to play before youth group, but they also told me and the other PowerPoint girl afterwards, so instead of playing on 8 quarters, the the band collectively and privately resigned to the youth pastor at youth group on the Friday before 8 quarters. None of them played on 8 quarters, and they also told their parents that they would. Before doing so, some of the band members stated that their parents had never pressured them to join the youth band, they had just volunteered. However, that didn't mean they didn't want to voice their concerns about Emma's treatment. They just wanted to do so in a more secure setting where they wouldn't have to worry about embarrassing their parents in front of the congregation, which could result in the loss of privileges. Instead, they shared their write-up with Emma, who was going to post her own justification for her excommunication from the church. Emma wrote a social media post on 8 quarters explaining why the band collectively resigned, and some of her bandmates decided to repost it on their own social media. Emma also tagged the church in her post because she thought the walkout would hurt the band more than it would help. We think that potential rumors and gossip might do their thing. Some of the bandmates also informed their parents that they would no longer attend that particular church, and while some of them argued with their parents, so it might have been less than the backlash of embarrassing them with a church walkout. The 15-year-old girl ended up going to church for 8 quarters, but the seniors didn't, even though they returned the next Sunday. Since the Friday before 8 quarters, none of them, including myself, have gone to youth group, and I didn't go for 8 quarters. 2 other unexpected things also happened. I got a direct message from someone claiming to be from a Christian news source. Additionally, a pastor reached out in DMS and said that he was encouraged by their story, adding that pastors were supposed to hold each other accountable. He asked for the name of the church so that he could contact pastor to talk, but Emma and the band are still unsure about this. I had never heard of their outlet before, but they asked permission to share the story anonymously in one of their newsletters without naming the band or the churches. They said they would pray about it and that it's crucial to confirm that the pastor is genuine and that the church won't suffer any harm. I told the pastor that I would follow up with him. Emma also told the band that her parents haven't spoken to her much since her church statements because of arguments they had. Some people believed that Emma's parents left the church to support their daughter's band, but that wasn't the case. Emma's parents were also banned and said they didn't like being. The last thing I'll say is about myself and how I feel about everything, and I'll leave the band statement from Emma's post afterward. Emma was taken by surprise by her statement and received some backlash for it, but they aren't talking right now. This was the last straw for me, and I've had a lot of things from this particular church, but it goes beyond that. I find it hard to understand how parents can care more about church appearances than the needs and desires of their children, and I'm not talking about bad things, I'm talking about normal things, and Emma's statement said it better than I could. Emma claimed that God gave everyone free will, but the 15-year-old girl was physically abused because she didn't want to go to church in the past. This is the exact opposite of what God taught, which is that He didn't force people to believe in Him. However, some parents deny their children privileges if they don't follow God and their church. I don't even have many friends, and I'm not even in the band group chat, the band informed me. I wish my parents would have allowed me to attend school, but it seems they don't believe their religion is strong enough for me. Everything is secondhand, and none of them are my friends. They hang out together outside of church. I only have one other friend from church because I've been homeschooled my entire life because they believe public education is too secular. I can't even participate in official sports outside of those played on the church field, which is used by our homeschool group. I need a break from church. I know that not all churches are bad because the one I grew up in is dubious, but I've decided I'm not a Christian because I said the salvation prayer when I was around 7 or 8 years old, and I don't think that counts because you don't know what you believe at that age because all you have is heavy bias from your parents. I need a break from church so that I can be objective in the future after my pastor. Since Christianity is all I've ever known, I've stopped considering myself a Christian internally. This doesn't mean I'll never return, but I need a long break from Christianity because the thought of modern Christians makes me sick because there is too much hate masquerading as Christianity and political overlap. The church has made some dubious decisions in recent years, such as the people who sold things that weren't of God before Jesus flipped tables. I'm going to try and learn about other religions because I hope a break will help me reset in some ways. The band statement mentioned that they would no longer attend the church, but I'm not sure if their parents were the reason they did so. I've also argued with my parents about how I'll no longer attend church, but this is getting too long. Some of the band has faced punishments for not going, and that is the epitome of what's wrong with their twisted version of Christianity. This is the band write-up that Emma posted along with her explanation of how she was banned. As Christians, we are called to worship Jesus Christ, but how does one become a Christian by making a choice that no one else can make for us? The final part is something that many people find offensive. However, this is the write-up that they shared with Emma, and it's longer than what they probably would have been allowed to say before the walkout if someone cut their microphone. The only goal of Christianity is a personal relationship with God. It has nothing to do with Christian nationalism or those who try to use our faith as an excuse to control others or false prophets. As Christians, we shouldn't judge because we are not God. But since our church has banned Emma and lied to the youth about it, many have forgotten that Jesus never forced anyone to follow him. Joshua 24 verse 15 tells us to choose whom we will serve, but many have forgotten the part about free will. When she decided to leave, we are no longer allowed to play or stay in a church where the pastor preaches something other than the gospel from the pulpit. We pray that the true Spirit of God will return someday. In the end, I haven't gone to church in a few weeks, and I hope I never do again. My parents aren't happy and we've discussed it. They haven't made me go, but this circumstance was the last straw for me because since my last update, John, one of my senior bandmates, called to check on me and provide an update on what has been going on since Emma's post with their statement. He said that the senior who called me had started community college and that the other senior, whose parents threatened to withhold tuition, had not been punished for leaving the band. The senior who called me was not the 15-year-old girl who took Emma's place as the lead singer. Instead, her parents made her return to church, along with another boy who was in the band. Emma continued to stay in touch. The senior who was disciplined said he wasn't interested and only went to church because his parents made him do so for a large portion of his life. He also said he wouldn't go to church in the future because he wasn't ever really religious in the first place. The senior who called me and wrote the majority of the statement said he was fed up with church hypocrisy and that the situation made him never want to go to church again. Emma encouraged the two seniors to find a new church after the post, and he gave me an update on her life. Emma was sad that the situation soured their opinion of church, but she wasn't looking for a new church to take time to find herself. When John asked if I would look for a new church, I told him no, other than that I was tired. I'm going to be more specific here because some things have been really bothering me. Many comments said that we gave them hope for future generations of Christians, but reading that made me angry personally, and I'm going to. To put it bluntly, I detest modern Christianity in this country. I know it's not God's fault that many Christians are so hateful these days, but my dislike predates this incident by years because I feel like I never had a childhood because I've been homeschooled my entire life because my parents believe public school is too secular. I have only one friend and poor social skills because my only exposure is Sunday services and youth group twice a week, and they check what I wear because of. More than that, I'm afraid because I have no one to talk to because my parents have raised me on a religion that has no evidence of its existence. When I have tried to express my fears in the past, they have responded that I should know better, which is not solid proof of what will happen when my time on earth ends. If there is no God or judgment day, my entire life would have been wasted on unknowable beliefs that I would never truly live to please. I genuinely fear that if they are mistaken, I will be unable to hold anyone accountable because it will be too late. It's already too late for me to have a childhood, so I just hope that someone can allay my fears until I can afford to consult a professional. I'll keep my direct messages open for any advice, even though I've seen some comments calling me and the band cowards for not doing the walkout, and it hurts to see comments that say that we gave hope for future generations of. Christianity is the reason my parents never gave me a childhood, so I'm done with it because of that fear. I don't have enough solid evidence to base my life on an invisible God, and I'm already 17 years old and have hardly lived at all. I want to go to college, live a little, occasionally drink, and date someone outside of church because that's my last chance before working 9 to 5 for the rest of my life, but I can't do that while constantly feeling guilty about purity and everything else extreme Christians try to guilt you with. It felt good to be able to use the band's walkout idea and eventual post to use their scriptures against the church for a change, but that doesn't mean I'm passionate about Christianity when so many people use it to control lives like mine through homeschooling, and I hate that I know so much of the Bible too. I thought I was passionate about Christianity for my last posts, but to be honest, I've hated Christianity long before this mess because I don't like homeschooling. And politically charged it has become in recent years, I don't want to be linked with it, thus I don't want anything to do with it.